Welcome to another episode of Treehouse Friends. My name's Randy Hoyt, and today I'm here at the In Control conference in Orlando, joined by one of the co-organizers, Christopher Schmitt. How are you, Christopher?
Doing great, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
Can you tell us a little bit about the In Control conference?
Oh yeah, it's a conference we started about 4 or 5 years ago. We started out with in Cincinnati, and one of the things we do is we work with local AIGA chapters, and AIGA is a national organization of design professionals, and it's design professionals of any various design field, but their primarily background is print design. And so within Control, we really wanted to bring web designers who are really just experts in their field and bring them to local chapters, as well as inviting people outside the AIGA to attend a conference and really just deep dive into different technologies and aspects of web design. And so it's a 2-day conference. So each day kicks off with a keynote. And then on the first day, we start with HTML as a foundation, so HTML5. Then we go to a CSS, and then the next session is JavaScript. And then the last session of the first day is kind of like a session that kind of ties everything together. So right now, like while we're talking, Chris Coyer is doing his modern workflow. And so he's really going to be just touching on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all the other stuff to make a really great website in today's age. And then day 2 is what we call like the potpourri track. So we kick off another keynote, but then that day is more like soft sciences, usability, content strategy, accessibility, stuff that technically you don't need to make a website, but it's the materials and the education and the substance that you need to make a really great user experience for that. So our hope is by the end of the day, that at the end of the conference, that people will have a really good idea of what it takes to build even a better, more impressive website than when they started out. And by having the new tools and the ideas, that they leave inspired to do great work.
Excellent. Now, there's a lot of content available for free or pretty inexpensive on the internet, blogs and books, and even the Treehouse videos can provide people a lot of those same technical skills. What would you say is the benefit to getting out from behind the laptop and going to a conference?
Well, I think you just said it. Like you get out of the laptop, right? You get behind. So you're always like in front of the laptop, and so your mind is always trying to, find the latest blog tutorial or whatnot. And sometimes those get out of date and they don't get updated. Sometimes the information changes so fast, as you know. Like we just talked about responsive images and how much has changed within the last year. And so that content needs to be updated. And sometimes what's really popular in Google searches isn't what you need to know, right? So you really need someone that can, a speaker at a conference who can, hopefully, if they're expert enough, put it into context for you, and then also ask questions. And maybe the speaker probably wasn't expecting to answer that question, but it's a question that you came up with, and that help you put the ideas and into a better context for that. And so also it's a great way to network and to meet like-minded folks who you probably normally wouldn't meet otherwise. So it's a really great way of doing that. And so just the way the whole industry changes so fast, it's a really great way just to get up to date pretty fast and ask not only just the speakers, but there's a saying that sometimes the speaker isn't the smartest person in the room. It's the audience is the smartest person in the room. And so that's one of the things when I speak is that if there's a question I don't know, I make sure I tell people I don't know the answer to that one, but maybe someone here knows. And like most of the time, they probably know the answer to it. So, but yeah, so that's a great way to just learn, get your answers, and move on and make and really just not move, but just be inspired to great things. And I feel like you get inspired by knowing, right? And knowing what you need to do to build great things. So.
Now, you mentioned Cincinnati, and you've had In Control here in Orlando a couple of times. What other venues do you have coming up for this year? Well,
we started out with Cincinnati, because I used to live there, and I was on the board of AIGA Cincinnati, so we started there. I was also on the board of AIGA Orlando, so I knew people here. And so we've been actually coming back to Orlando for the last this is our 4th year, and it's just a great spot, and it's it's the middle of winter time, so it's a really great way to like warm up during that. So we've come here, and then we also did Hawaii last year as well. And that was really great because we got people from like all over the world to come to that one. So it's Hawaii's awesome. Some other conferences we have lined up is Artifact Conference, which is more geared towards designing for this new multi-device web that we have now. And things have changed so much that some people just you just can't make Photoshop comps because it's not just 960 pixels anymore, right? So like how do you design for responsive stuff when Photoshop doesn't cut it? So we're working with the people at Converge and also Jennifer Robbins, who's been around with web forever. So this conference, it's a 2-day conference with workshops, and so we're more geared towards designers and so like so. So we'll have like Trent Walton from Paravel there, Jennifer Simmons from the 5x5 Webhead podcast is going to be there. I'll be there talking about GitHub for designers, stuff like that. So it's just talking about new ways to design, as well as HTML collages from Dan Mall's going to be there, to style tiles, to a whole bunch of other things. So it's going to be really geared towards front end designers in terms of what does it take to be a designer now. So, and also then in October we're doing CSS DevConf, and so I'm a big CSS nerd. I've written the CSS Codebook for O'Reilly. I've written a couple other books about CSS and stuff like that too. And so that's one I'm really dear. I love that a lot. And so that one's going to be in Colorado in the Stanley Hotel. And one thing I love about that is that it's a double-blind call for papers, so people can submit talks for that conference, and instead of just like voting for a popular speaker, we actually separate the name from the actual content, and so people vote on the content that they want to see, but they can also vote on the speakers there too. So we get a good idea of what people they want to see, but also really what the content is. And so that's going to be our second annual CSS DevConf, because we did CSS DevConf first year in Hawaii, like back to back with In Control, and that was just a huge success. So we'll go back and do it again. So.
And what did you say Artifact was going to be, and what were the dates for that?
Artifact is going to be May 13th through the 15th, and so that's going to be in Austin, Texas. And so the first 2 days is going to be the normal conference too. So it's just going to be like sessions, like half hour to hour sessions, maybe, and there's some panels about an hour and 50 minutes or something like that. So it's going to be a great time just to learn and get up to speed on that. And then the third day is going to be workshops. So the folks from Build Responsively, like Ben Callahan, are going to be there to teach people all day about how to build responsively. Then also we have Brad Frost doing kind of design patterns workshop, and then we'll have a workshop, a half-day workshop, just talking about designing for touch and what does that mean, stuff like that. So it's going to be a really great 3 days for that. And then CSS DevConf is also 3 days with this kind of same format: sessions for first 2 days, and then workshops the third day. So.
Now, for people that can't travel maybe to Austin, or Colorado, or Hawaii, what would you recommend to have some of that similar networking and conference experience?
I would definitely look into Refresh. And so Refresh is this concept where people just meet up, kind of like a user group, and it's really big in Austin, where where I am from. But we have every month there's a designer talk for about 40 minutes, followed by a developer talk, and it's just a really great way for the community to get together, share ideas, network, and mingle. So check to see if there's a Refresh in your area. If not, definitely start one. There's no reason why you can't do that. Also, if you're a designer, check out, see if there's a local AIGA chapter in your area. And also just check out meetup.com. It's a really great way to see if there's any like local interest in the area. And then also check to see if there's local conferences. Like we do great conferences, I believe. So, and I support those a lot. So, but there's conferences all over that are great, So definitely check out to see if anyone's coming in your area. So definitely do that.
Excellent. Now, how did you get into organizing conferences? I think before that you were building websites for clients. When did you make the transition, and what brought that about?
I was a speaker for a while, so I've been doing web stuff for a long time. And really what happened was that during the dot-com crash of the fabled 2001 era, I got laid off, and and that weekend I got my first book offer. So I was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing for the next 3 months or 6 months. So I was writing a book. And once I did that, then I just said, hey, I would really like to speak at conferences. And so if people who are listening or seeing this, just if they feel they have the chops or whatnot, just to ask conference organizers, hey, I really want to talk about this XYZ topic, and this is what I've done and stuff like that. So once I'd written the book, I said, I've done this, I know the technology. And so I started speaking, around different conferences like Web Visions, that's in Portland, and all over the place. And so that's how I got involved. And so I had a lot of ideas about how to do a conference based off of like what I saw. And then also I met my partner, Ari Stiles. She actually worked for South by Southwest in Austin. And so we met and we started talking about conferences, and really meta, kind of boring conversations to other people. But to us, we're like, oh, that'd be great, right? And it was just like on my bucket list. I was just talking to Kimberly Blessing, who does a really great job with web standards. And we decided to make a list of what we're going to do for the next year. And I was like, I really just rain or shine. And was no matter what happens next year, I'll be doing a conference. And so thankfully, AIGA Cincinnati was gung ho with it. And so we put it on, and that was the first In Control. And not much has changed with In Control since that. So the one that you see today is pretty much the same one that you saw back then, except a lot more people. And the faces may change a little bit, but the speakers. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got started, and so that was really great. And then at the same time, I spoke at a conference, an online conference called the Head Conference, and that was put on by Errol Balkin, and that was just amazing because, as I told you, I spoke at conferences, and so what happens is usually as a speaker, you go to conferences, you speak, and then you go back to your hotel room, pack up, and then head for the airport, right? So I would speak into my computer at home, and then when I was done, I felt like I had to go to my room, my bedroom, pack, and then go to the airport, even though I was still there. So I had to go up and leave. And I felt like, wow, this is a really powerful impact for something that just, and that just happened. And I had like over 100 people I was talking to. And I was like, man, this is a really awesome experience. Would be awesome just to have like a whole day geared to CSS. And like I mentioned before, total CSS nerd. So I got, a whole bunch of my friends who are CSS nerds together, and we decided to just to see if we can make it work. And so that was our first annual CSS Summit. And that just went off great, like gangbusters. And so we've just been doing it ever since. So we've done a CSS Summit, we've done a jQuery JavaScript Summit every year, and now we've added like Responsive Web Design Summit. So basically the whole, so with the online conferences, we just do online tracks, like all just deep dive on one topic and try to make things, awesome. And the name of our company is Environments for Humans. And the idea behind that is that we really want to teach people to build better tools so they make better websites. Make better user experiences for people, because there's a lot of bad websites out there. And so thankfully, places like Treehouse, people can build better websites out there for people. So.
Yeah, and I spoke at one of those online conferences. I was really impressed with the setup you guys have there. You can follow along, you feel like you're at a conference, and even network with people in the chat room. So props to you for making that happen even remotely.
Yeah, definitely. So if there's not a conference coming to you, if there's not a refresh, meetup that you want to do, definitely check out online conferences, and you can definitely meet and interact with people, and definitely the experts will come to your desktop, as we say, and so you can definitely ask the questions you want to and feel like you're part of the community, because that's one of the things great about our industry. And that's why when I first started speaking, was that just by our nature of our industry, we're so open that we have to share our information in order to get better, but also, to continue on, because it's not going to happen otherwise. With the web, it's always about view source and how can we learn to do better. So.
One of the hot topics these days are responsive images, and I know you have a book out, Designing Web and Mobile Graphics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, and it's talking a lot about images. What are your thoughts on responsive images these days? What techniques are people using? What's your favorite technique, or the one you think that works in most of the cases?
Well, the one that's most well known is the picture element that's been trying to be produced and go through HTML process, the working group process right now. And so that one kind of borrows a lot from the video tag and the audio tag, and to be easily to apply like media queries and HD right now, like to be able to sort and say, hey, I want this image to be sorted to this one. That's really popular. People can kind of easily grok that. It's also kind of easy to work that into a browser, rather than working with trying to create a whole new image format, create like whole new modules for your server and stuff like that. So that's one way people are trying to do it like that. That's not my favorite way, because the big issue with that is it's all about raster images, right? You can't really stretch and resize a raster image and have the image quality be the same as it would be a vector graphic, right? That you can get from Illustrator or something like that. So that's really the pain point of responsive images. And so the picture element allows you to do that. I'm not a big fan of that, because I don't really feel like messing my CSS with my HTML. I like them separate, right? So my favorite way is one that requires a large JPEG, a large raster image, like huge, almost like desktop pattern, the desktop background size pattern. And you take it to Photoshop and you just compress the heck out of it to like 0% quality. It looks like just like your dog just walked all over or something, like from the outside, right? But and then you just resize it, because with responsive web design, it's all about scaling images, right? And it looks great. And most times, it'll be the file size will be lower than image for like regular, like the image you would use for 72 dpi screen. And since it's a huge image and you're stretching it, it also looks great on Retina or HD to screens. And so that's my favorite technique right now. And so there are some like caveats with that I mentioned in the book, that you have to be mindful what type of your histogram, which is kind of like the display colors in an image, right? So you want like a nice mountain kind of range in your histogram, but if you have like peaks and valleys, like really sharp, high contrast colors, that type of technique doesn't really work very well. So you have to be careful with that. So, but overall, if you have a nice, almost kind of muted in color range, if you will, that technique is awesome. It's a really great way, and because it's low file size, but it serves both Retina and regular old school displays very well. And so, in fact, you may want to be able to do a quick image swap with like regulars, like a mobile first image, and then swap it with like a high res after a page gets loaded. So that's kind of my favorite technique right now.
You mentioned the picture element. I mean, that's not supported by all browsers yet. So I mean, how do you work around that?
Yeah, right. So so we're just going through the process right now. Hopefully we standardize, but even that is like slow, laborious process, right? So one of the things they can do is like, it's called a polyfill or really a patch, and so you just get that from GitHub, from the fine folks at like Filament Group, and just download it and apply it. And it's a little bit more complex than what I would like it to be, but definitely if you want to use the picture element as a way to go and get familiar with kind of what they're trying to do with it, that's definitely one solution to go with.
You talked about raster and vector graphics. With raster images, there are a number of different formats. I imagine you cover that in the book, like when to use which format.
Oh, yes, yeah.
What can you give at a high level, just as a guide?
Oh, yeah, well, the best way is like if it's a photo, go with the JPEG format. Flat colors, maybe we'll go with GIF or maybe in PNG. So if it's a flat, basically flat colors is GIF or PNG 8, PNG 8-bit. So, and if you want transparency, definitely look into PNG 24, because that way you can have very subtle graphics and very nice overlays with your transparencies. So.
And what's the status of vectors in the browser? I know SVG is a popular format. Is that widely supported these days?
Yeah, it's widely supported, but there's still some minor bugs. But if you just need an image, like a logo, and or a graphic that's not going to do a whole lot, SVGs are really well supported in browsers. It kind of blew my mind when I was doing research for the book that the SVGs you can actually just do image source file name.svg, and there's no, it works. The only caveat is that if it's a complex SVG image, you might be better off going with an actual raster image. If it's just a logo, you might, with a just kind of flat, simple typeface type of illustration or whatnot, SVG is the way to go with that. But if it's more complex, almost like kind of a illustration, more so, it might be better to go with a raster image. So.
And then use one of the various responsive images techniques on top of that raster graphic.
Yeah. So yeah. And so in the book, we talk about a couple old techniques. So we do talk about picture element, and we go step by step how people can do that, as well as the other technique for using big compressed images.
Excellent. And what software can you use to make SVGs? Can you just export a Photoshop document into an SVG?
The software you can use actually is Adobe Illustrator, and in the book we go through the steps that you just staked to get a really well compressed SVG graphic from Illustrator, and it's pretty awesome.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all I had for you today, Christopher. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to follow you, keep up with what you're doing, keep up with In Control, where can they find you online? What's the best way to follow you?
Probably the best way is on Twitter, is twitter.com/Teleject. My website's christopherschmitt.com. And my blog for the book is dwmgbook.com. And so I'll be updating graphic techniques as they change, because the responsive web design chapter for the book I had to rewrite 3 times during the course of writing the book. So I just knew, like, as the book was coming out, that I definitely need to have a place where I can just talk about responsive images and image techniques as they change and adapt. So.
Great. Well, thanks so much. This was another episode of Treehouse Friends. We'll see you next time.